I just wanted to talk about some examples of what I call convergences, and most people would probably refer to as synchronicities, and give some examples, and then maybe talk a little bit about why I feel they're important to pay attention to. So recently I had an event that just threw me right into quite a deep feeling of sorrow, and it just I'm still in it. This is a few days ago, and convergence after convergence. Paul had a student whose father died, plus Paul's cat died. Cat he'd known for 20 years and who was a really close emotional companion for him. He'd grown up as a child with cats, and they have always formed a very important part of his emotional sort of support system. And then I'm talking to Yueshen, my Chinese friend, and she's talking about how she has a friend who's always stable and unaffected by things around her, and she's always her own person and strong. And Yueshan is saying how that's good, and now I'm feeling strong too. And I felt that there was something really clunky and hollow and missing there. So she drew a picture of the weak girl Yueshan and the new happy strong girl Yueshan, and I said, well, tell me about this weak girl. And she just started to really feel some emotion there, and we ended up agreeing that it's fine for that happy side, but she said, look, there is just so much depth and history and sorrow and pain in that what she calls weak girl side, because the Chinese culture is quite different to ours in that you don't show your weakness, your vulnerability and so forth. So we had quite a discussion on vulnerability. So all of us experiencing quite a depth of emotion around sorrow, loss and pain and wounding, and yet all agreeing that that is the garden bed that things grow in. Just because there's sorrow in there doesn't necessarily mean it's all discomfort and pain. It's just that we haven't learnt to let those feelings flow. The discomfort is around holding on and tight contraction, and as Paul put it, one method he uses to not feel that depth of emotion is he sort of beats himself up a bit, which causes more contraction, and if you do it enough you just numb off the feelings that you can't deal with. Not that the feelings are bad in themselves, but not being able to deal with them is what causes the discomfort. So if he just sort of knocks himself around a bit, it causes a more contraction in his body, defensive mechanisms kick in, and he doesn't have to deal with those feelings that he hasn't learnt to deal with yet. Same for all of us. There's a depth that often culturally, many different reasons we have difficulty dealing with them. So another example of convergence. Max Spears being interviewed on the Basis Project, he was saying, in answer to a question of how to heal from wounds and so forth, and get one's life on a good trajectory, his first observation was to unplug from gurus, get away from gurus, and to be with oneself and ask oneself what we feel within ourselves rather than referencing other people, which is a whole big theme which will really come through in videos on this channel. The other thing he said was, and notice, take time to notice all the, what I call convergences. So, and he would call synchronicities, where you feel a thing, your inner world is operating in a certain way, and then suddenly you notice, oh my goodness, my inner world is generating ripples and effects in the outer world that mimic, that converge and shape themselves around and take the same form that the inner world is taking. So just an example of convergences around sorrow, and then we have Max talking about, look out for those convergences, because these will teach us more. The convergences are like the strokes of the artist. If you think of our world as being painted like a picture, and the artist comes from that stream of life flowing through us, which is all the time painting the picture of what's going on inside in our outside circumstances, then if we pay attention to the shapes and forms of our outer circumstances, we get an idea of what internal issues are going on at that particular point in time for us, which is useful because it's the same principle of expression being important for insight into what's going on inside us as beings. We don't know the extent of what is going on inside us until we get it out on the table. We express it in some way. We externalize it in some form that we can examine it more closely and more clearly, and take notes and observations, and then go from there. Apply the scientific method of observation and experimentation, which is probably another talk.